Your wish is granted, he said coldly. But love? That's not part of the deal. Rain blurred the city like a smeared watercolor, washing neon signs into trembling reflections on the wet pavement. I stood at the edge of the alley, soaked to the skin, one hand clenched tightly around the torn page I had ripped from an old book that had no business existing in this century. Say his name. Under moonlight, in rain or blood. Offer your desire, and he will come. I didn't believe in demons. I believed in betrayal. I believed in pain. I believed in watching the man I trusted, loved, walk over my reputation like a doormat to get promoted. The old warehouse loomed ahead, walls covered in faded graffiti and rust. Perfect place to summon a creature from beyond, right? I stepped into the echoing dark, puddles swallowing my footsteps. My voice trembled, but I said the name anyway. Noir. It was barely more than a whisper. The air thickened. Not wind, not temperature. Pressure. Something noticed me. Then he appeared, not with fire or screaming shadows, no. Just there, as if he had always been standing beneath the broken skylight, waiting. He wore a tailored black suit, dry despite the weather, hair ink dark, his eyes a cold, flat steel that didn't blink. You're late, I said before I could stop myself. He tilted his head. You expected punctuality from a demon? You came, I breathed. You're real. So is your wish. His voice had no tone. Not boredom. Not cruelty. Just fact. Speak it. I took a step closer, heart pounding in my throat. I want him ruined. The man who took everything from me. My job, my reputation. I want him humiliated, destroyed. He looked me over like I was nothing more than paperwork. And what will you offer in return? I held out the paper. Whatever you want. Your desire, he said. That is the price. I blinked. Desire? That's vague. It's what makes you human, he replied. You give it up. I take it. You will still feel hunger, thirst, anger, fear. But passion, ambition, joy? His eyes met mine like a knife. Gone. My chest tightened. Could I live like that? Could I exist without wanting? But hadn't I already been doing that, ever since he, Ethan, had smiled while watching me fall? If it means he suffers, I said quietly. Take it. Noir stepped forward. He didn't ask again. He simply extended his hand. I took it. The contact was instant pain, like frostbite under my skin. I gasped, knees buckling. But he didn't let go. His grip was firm, inhumanly still. The pain wasn't just physical. It was pulling something out of me. I felt it. The spark that made me chase goals, that made me wake up with purpose, that made me dream. It was being ripped from somewhere deep inside. Then it stopped. Noir released my hand. My palm burned with a faint red mark. His signature. I couldn't speak for a moment. My throat was dry. My thoughts duller somehow. What happens now? I asked finally. He turned away, hands clasped behind his back. The man you named will have his reckoning. I nodded. Good. That's all I wanted. He looked at me over his shoulder. Is it? I flinched. And that's when he said it. Your wish is granted, he said coldly. But love? That's not part of the deal. Then he vanished into the dark. Or so I thought. I woke to the smell of coffee. For a heartbeat, I thought I'd dreamed it all. The rain, the ruined warehouse, the impossible deal. Maybe I'd simply passed out after another breakdown and hallucinated the entire thing. Then I heard the clink of ceramic. I sat up fast, heart in my throat. My apartment was quiet except for the faint hum of the fridge and someone in the kitchen. I crept toward the living room, blanket still around my shoulders. And there he was, standing at my stove like he belonged there, pouring coffee into my favorite mug, the chipped one with the stupid cartoon fox. Noir, still in that same black suit, still dry as if the rain never touched him, still looking like a Vogue model and a funeral in one breath. You're in my house, I said hoarsely. He glanced over. Your contract stipulates my continued presence until fulfillment. My what? The agreement you signed with blood and will. He sipped calmly. Did you believe vengeance came without supervision? I stared at him, words failing. Then I looked around my kitchen, small, lived in, messy, dirty dishes, an open bag of chips, a pile of unopened mail. A tube of anxiety meds beside my phone. You're making yourself comfortable. I don't sleep. I wait. My eyes narrowed. You wait? Here? He shrugged. You're the client. I go where you go. I grabbed the coffee mug out of his hand. This is my mug. He let go without resistance. That was implied. I turned away, biting down a curse. My brain was still too foggy to handle this. I took a sip of the coffee, scalded my tongue, then hissed. You even made it wrong. I made it the way you usually take it, he said, matter of fact. I turned. How would you know that? I watched you yesterday. 4 sugars, 1 cream. Too much caffeine for your body weight. You watched me? I study my contractors. Efficiency reduces error. I glared at him. You mean stalked? He didn't blink. Semantics. The absurdity of it all suddenly hit me, a literal demon in my kitchen, talking like a life coach with 0 social skills. And somehow this wasn't even the weirdest thing to happen this year. I set the mug down and rubbed my face. I need space, air, boundaries. He nodded, as if considering a business proposal. Noted. I will minimize interference. Minimize. I will not enter your bedroom without invitation. I will remain silent during private calls. I will only engage when spoken to. Are you reading off a contract template right now? I wrote the template. I groaned and walked into the living room. My apartment wasn't much, just enough to pretend I was doing okay. A beat-up couch with too many throw pillows. A bulletin board covered in post-its, schedules, half-sketched dreams I hadn't dared touch in months. The remains of last night's takeout were still on the coffee table. A wilted plant drooped from the windowsill. I sat down and stared at nothing. Noir stood near the doorway, watching me with that unreadable stillness. I could feel him analyzing, like I was a puzzle missing one final piece. It made my skin itch. Then my phone buzzed. Mom. I closed my eyes. I didn't want to pick up. I already knew what she wanted. She always wanted something. But I answered anyway. Celeste, she said, voice sharp and sweet like honey and razors. Your brother needs help. Again. He's starting a business. A real opportunity this time. Mom, I just gave him money 2 weeks ago. It's family, sweetheart. He's trying. And you've always been the smart one. There it was. The guilt hook. The praise laced with control. I don't have it right now, I lied. Silence. Then, of course. I understand. I just hoped you hadn't changed, that's all. Click. I set the phone down, my hands shaking. Your mother, Noir said quietly. I flinched. Were you listening? You were not subtle. I sighed, leaning my head back. She always does this. Guilt trips, emotional blackmail, then acts like I'm the disappointment. You answer her anyway. It's habit. He tilted his head. Habits imply choice. I laughed bitterly. So now you're my therapist too? No, he said. But I do find you curious. I looked at him for a long moment. Do you even feel curiosity? He didn't answer. Instead, he turned and began folding the dish rag beside the sink with surgeon-like precision. The silence stretched. I watched him move, thinking how unnatural it looked, how perfect, how mechanical. No wasted motion, no hesitation, like he was built, not born. I hated how calm he was, how much he noticed, how much he didn't say, and I hated even more that a part of me, some warped, broken part, felt less alone with him in the room. My mother didn't ask if I was free. She informed me. Sunday at 6. Wear something decent. Your brother's bringing his girlfriend, and I won't have you looking like a burnout again. I stared at the message, teeth grinding. Again. It didn't matter that I paid my own rent, that I'd built a career from nothing before it was sabotaged. In her eyes, I was always barely enough. I tossed the phone on the couch, groaning. From the kitchen, Noir's voice drifted out like a breeze too cold to be natural. You're going... I'm not, I snapped. She will not stop until you do. She'll never stop, period. He appeared in the doorway, buttoning the cuffs of his obsidian shirt as if dressing for war. She's a manipulator. You know this. Yet you still require her approval. I stood, arms folded. I don't need her approval. His eyes didn't flinch. Then why did your heartbeat spike when you read her text? I hated him sometimes. Fine. I muttered. But if I go, you go too. A flicker passed across his face. Amusement? Doubtful. Probably wind passing through a dead forest. I am bound to accompany you, he said. The contract requires my proximity. Then welcome to the circus. My mother's house was as cold as I remembered. Cold in the tasteful marble floors, in the overpriced art she never understood, in the perfectly arranged lilies that reeked of funeral homes. It smelled like sterilized success. She opened the door in a cashmere sweater and pearls, her face stretched in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Oh. You brought a guest? Noir gave her a polite nod. I'm Celeste's associate. Something in his voice made even her blink. Well, come in. My brother, Alec, already had a drink in hand and sarcasm on his tongue. Wow, sis. Finally found someone with worse eye contact than you. Still living off Mom's credit card? I said sweetly. He just grinned. Touché. We took our seats at the long, stupidly ornate dining table, a museum piece too uncomfortable for actual humans. Noir sat beside me like a shadow stitched to my shoulder. Dinner was roasted lamb, scalloped potatoes, and passive aggression. Still between jobs, dear? My mother asked as she poured wine she wouldn't drink. I'm consulting now. She hummed, unimpressed. Consulting is what people say when they're unemployed. I smiled. And retired is what people say when they've emotionally clocked out for 20 years. Alex snorted into his glass. My mother's smile twitched. Don't be so sensitive, darling. I'm only teasing. You always are, I said. It's your hobby. Noir hadn't said a word, but I felt the shift in his posture. His gaze fixed on my mother like she was a riddle he didn't find amusing. She turned her attention to him. And what do you do? I keep promises, he said simply. Alec raised an eyebrow. That sounds ominous. It is. I kicked Noir under the table. He didn't flinch. You must be very patient, my mother said, her voice all velvet knives. Noir set down his glass and looked her straight in the eye. Patience isn't the right word. I simply tolerate what I must until it ends. It was subtle, but everything in the room froze for half a breath. Even Alec stopped chewing. My mother's mouth opened, then closed. She looked away. We finished dinner in near silence. The car ride home was a storm of unspoken thoughts. I drove. Noir sat beside me, silent as always, fingers interlaced in his lap like he was praying to a god he didn't believe in. Finally, I exhaled. You think I'm overreacting, spoiled, dramatic. No. Then what? You're broken, he said calmly. But not because you failed. Because you were never allowed to be whole. I gripped the wheel tighter. I'm not broken, I whispered. He didn't argue. Just turned to the window as the city blurred past. You stood up for me, I said after a moment. No one's ever done that at that table before. He didn't look at me. It wasn't for you. I frowned. Then for who? For the silence. I dislike hypocrisy. It's loud. I blinked, then laughed. You are so weird. I am what you summoned. And yet, I murmured, glancing sideways at him. You didn't have to speak. He didn't answer. But for the first time since our contract began, he looked almost human. Almost. The rain came back that night. Soft, steady, rhythmic. The kind that makes you think too much. I sat curled up on the couch, arms around my knees, staring at the same spot on the wall I'd been staring at for the last 30 minutes. My lamp buzzed faintly beside me, casting a warm, hazy glow over the room. Everything else was dark. I didn't know why I was crying. It wasn't sobbing. No drama. Just quiet tears leaking down my cheeks, as if my body remembered pain even when I tried to forget it. I thought I was alone, until I looked up and saw him. Noir stood in the hallway, watching. He wasn't looming, not trying to interrupt or fix it. Just observing, like I was another page in a book he'd been reading too long. I wiped my face quickly. Don't you have better things to do than lurk? He didn't move. You always cry when it rains? No, I said, voice raw. Just when it feels like I don't exist. A pause. I see you, he said quietly. I scoffed. You watch me. That's not the same thing. Still, he stepped into the room, slowly. like he didn't want to scare the silence away. I wasn't always like this, I murmured. I used to be confident, driven, I had plans. I was happy. You were hopeful, he corrected. I looked up. And you think that's foolish? I think it's rare. I blinked at him. Do demons hope? No. Do you feel anything? He didn't answer at first. Then he sat down across from me, knees bent, arms resting loosely on his legs. We do. At first, he said. But the more wishes we grant, the less we retain. Emotion clouds judgment. Attachment complicates contracts. So, you burn it out of yourselves? He nodded slowly. Desire is a threat, so we consume it, until nothing is left but function. I swallowed hard. That sounds awful. It's necessary. And yet, I said softly, you looked angry at my mother. A flicker passed through his eyes. That wasn't anger. That was correction. Right. I leaned my head back against the couch. Because emotion is inefficient. He didn't reply. But the silence between us was heavier now. Not cold. Present. I think I'm scared, I whispered. Not of demons. Not even of you. I'm scared of being used again. Letting someone in only to watch them turn it into a weapon. You already used me, he said calmly. That stung more than it should have. I looked at him, eyes shining. Then why are you still here? He tilted his head. Because I wasn't the one who lost something in the deal. My breath caught. I didn't know what to say to that. He didn't smile, didn't move closer. But something in him softened, like a wall I hadn't realized was there had shifted, just a little. You didn't hesitate, he said, voice low. You gave up your desire like it meant nothing. It did, I said. I didn't want anything anymore. Not after what happened. That's not true. I frowned. Excuse me? You still wanted to be seen, heard, protected. You wanted someone to stay. My throat closed up. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, I felt seen, and not because someone pitied me or wanted something in return. Just seen. He stood up slowly, brushing imaginary dust from his sleeve. You should sleep, he said. Tears waste hydration. I almost laughed. You ruin every nice moment. I'm not built for nice, he replied without missing a beat. Still, as he turned to leave, he paused in the doorway. Then, without looking back, he said, But I can stay. I sat there long after he was gone, the echo of those words wrapping around me like the rain outside. The city never really sleeps. But it does get quieter, just enough to hear what shouldn't be heard. It was close to midnight when I stepped outside to clear my head. Noir hadn't said a word all evening, just sat silently at the window, unmoving, unreadable. Something about that silence felt heavier than usual. The alley beside my apartment was dim, lit only by a flickering street lamp and the faint neon glow of a deli sign across the street. The air smelled like warm asphalt and old smoke. I lit a cigarette I didn't want and leaned against the wall, exhaling slowly. Then the shadows moved. Not wind, not rats. Something else. Charming night, isn't it? Said a voice like polished glass. I turned sharply. He stepped out from the darkness with a grace that was almost unnatural. Tall, elegant, dressed in a dark velvet coat that shimmered like ink. His features were too symmetrical, too perfect. His eyes gleamed gold under the streetlight, bright and wrong. Definitely not human. I'm not in the mood, I said flatly. His lips curled. Oh, I think you might be. You're Celeste, aren't you? Who's asking? I go by many names, he said, placing a hand over his heart in mock courtesy. But for tonight, let's keep it simple. I'm an interested party. That's not creepy at all. He laughed softly. You've been keeping company with Noir. I'd say I'm the least creepy thing in your life right now. I stiffened. You know him? We're in the same line of work. He tilted his head. Well, we were. Before he went defective, that word sent a shiver down my spine. What do you mean, defective? He's forgetting what he is. That's dangerous for both of you. His golden gaze slid over me like a scalpel. Emotions, attachment, proximity. All violations of our code. I didn't sign up for some demon ethics committee. Leave. I could offer you a better deal. he said, stepping closer. Your vengeance was petty. I could give you something meaningful. Power, control, protection that doesn't require you to care about anyone in return. I already signed a contract. Then break it, he said smoothly. I can overwrite it. Easy. No. He raised a brow. Why not? I didn't have a good answer, but my fists clenched on instinct. I don't trust you. But you trust him? The smile faded. He's slipping, Celeste. The moment he crosses the line, the moment he feels too much, he'll be erased. You'll lose him. Just like everything else. My pulse thudded in my ears. Then she said no. The voice came from behind me. I turned, relief punching through my chest. Noir stood at the edge of the alley, barely more than a silhouette in the gloom. But his voice, low, even deadly, cut through the air like ice cracking underfoot. The golden-eyed demon smiled wider. Ah, there he is. I wondered when you'd crawl out of yourself. Imposed exile. You're trespassing, Noir said. Leave, or what? The other demon purred. You'll feel at me? Noir didn't move. But I saw something shift in the air between them. Something I couldn't explain. A flicker of something older than words. The air got colder. I wonder, the intruder mused, stepping back. Do you even remember what you were before you started playing human? Go, Noir said again. Before I remind you. The golden-eyed one looked at me one last time. If he breaks the rules, you won't have time to say goodbye. Then he was gone. Just gone. I exhaled sharply, not realizing I'd been holding my breath. Noir walked toward me. His expression was not neutral, not his usual calm. There was something strained in his eyes. Something deeply unsettled. You okay? I asked. No, he said simply. I waited, but he didn't elaborate. Just stood there like the night itself had followed him in. What was he talking about? I asked quietly. He looked away. If I show too much deviation, they'll erase me. Erase? Oblivion, he said. Unmaking. Demons aren't allowed to fracture. We're meant to serve, to deliver, not care. I stared at him. Then why do you? He didn't answer right away. Then, because something in you called to something in me, and now I'm defective. The words hit harder than I expected. You said they'd erase you. He nodded once. But you'd be safe. The contract would default to the next available handler. You'd be reassigned. Do you want that? No? Silence settled between us like ash. I stepped closer. Then stop pretending you're just a tool. I am a tool. No, I said softly. You're a choice. And you're making it. For the first time, his voice wavered. Barely. But enough. I don't know what I'm becoming, he said. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying and beautiful. Neither did I. I wasn't looking for anything when I opened the closet. I just needed to feel like I was doing something, anything, to stop my brain from circling the drain of what-ifs and what now. Noir hadn't spoken since the alley. He stayed near, but quiet. Observing, always. Like he was waiting for me to shatter. The box was shoved in the back. Dusty. Unmarked. Forgotten. Inside were old photographs, broken pens, half-burned notebooks. And letters. Dozens of them. Yellowed, creased, tucked in envelopes with handwriting I hadn't seen since I was 14. Dad's. I sat down on the floor and stared at the first one for a long moment before I opened it. Celeste. If your mother lets you read this, it means I'm either dead or she's finally lost control. Maybe both. Listen to me. She loves you in the way that suits her. She will dress it up as protection, as tradition, as responsibility. But it's control. Always has been. Promise me this. Don't live for her. Don't let her shape your guilt like clay and turn you into something she can own. You're more than her reflection. You're more than her disappointment. You're mine too. Dad. My breath left my body. There were more. Pages of truths I was never meant to see. Warnings. Stories. Pieces of him I didn't remember, because my mother had rewritten the narrative until I believed she'd done everything alone. That he'd left us. That he deserved to be forgotten. But that wasn't the truth. She'd erased him because he saw her clearly. Because he loved me without needing me to earn it. And I had believed her. A sob rose in my throat before I could stop it. I ripped open the next envelope. Then the next. My hands were shaking. My vision blurred. Words blurred. You're not weak, Celeste. She just needs you to think you are. They will never love you for who you are, if you keep trying to be who they demand. If she tries to buy your silence, scream louder. I don't remember standing. I don't remember dialing. But suddenly I was on the phone, pacing barefoot in the kitchen, letters clenched in one hand. She picked up on the second ring. Celeste? How could you? I breathed. How could you hide these from me? A pause. Hide what? You know what? I snapped. His letters. His voice. Sweetheart, your father. He warned me about you. And he was right. Her voice sharpened. He was unstable, Celeste. He wrote things that weren't appropriate. No, I shouted. He wrote things that were true. Silence. Then she said, so coldly it made me flinch. I did what I had to do. To raise you, to keep you safe. No, I whispered. You did what you had to do to own me. I gave you everything. No, I said again. You gave me a cage and told me to call it a home. Click. The call ended. I stood there, shaking, heart pounding, throat raw. Then I dropped the phone. And I broke. I fell to the bathroom floor, surrounded by torn letters and water droplets from the leaky faucet overhead. It was too quiet. Too still. I curled forward and cried like something in me had finally snapped. Not the kind of crying that begs for help. The kind that means something inside died. And then, I felt him. Noir didn't speak. He simply sat beside me on the cold tile, knees drawn up, back against the wall. After a long moment, his hand came to rest gently on my shoulder. Not as a command. Not as a claim. As comfort. I leaned into it slowly. Just a little. Just enough. We sat like that, in the soft flicker of a dying hallway bulb, between broken things and quiet truths. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I needed to fight. For the first time, I didn't want revenge. I wanted peace. I wanted to be me, whoever that was, without guilt in my lungs and grief in my spine. Noir didn't try to fix me. He just stayed. And somehow that was more than enough. The building hadn't changed. Same dull gray facade. Same crooked blinds in the lobby window. Same flickering elevator light like it was always one power surge away from giving up. But I had changed. I stood in the hallway outside his office and exhaled slowly. My heels clicked against the tile as I walked in. No hesitation, no rehearsed speech. Just the weight of my own clarity. Ethan looked up from his desk, startled. Celeste? He said, blinking. I didn't know you had... I'm not here for long, I interrupted. He stood, still too smug in that expensive shirt and cheap cologne. Still acting like the world owed him comfort. You look... different, he said, eyes flicking over me like I was a product he forgot he once owned. I am different, I replied. He gestured for me to sit. I didn't. I've been meaning to reach out, he began. After everything, I thought maybe we could clear the air. I didn't come for closure, I said. I came because I wanted to look you in the eye when I said this. He frowned, uneasy now. Okay. You didn't ruin me. His mouth opened. Closed. Celeste, that's not what... You tried, I continued. You used me, humiliated me, sabotaged everything I built, and for a while I let that define me. But not anymore. There was no venom in my voice, no anger, just truth. Calm. Final. I'm not your victim. I'm not a mistake. I'm not a thing you get to keep in your win column. I stepped back, letting the silence fill the space between us. He stared at me like he didn't know what to do with this version of me. Good. Goodbye, Ethan. And then I left. Back home, the city buzzed beyond my window. Cars, neon, voices I didn't need to listen to anymore. I took the old ceramic bowl from the top shelf and set it on the balcony floor. Inside, I placed the parchment. The copy of the contract. The mark of our deal. Noir stood beside me, saying nothing. He didn't ask what I was doing. He already knew. I'm ending it, I said softly. He gave the smallest nod. My fingers trembled as I struck the match. The flame caught quickly. The parchment curled, blackened, vanished into smoke. And just like that, he was gone. No flicker, no sound. 1 second he was there. The next, he wasn't. I stood there for a long time. The breeze chilled my arms. The city kept moving, unaware that something vast had just unraveled in a quiet woman's life. I didn't cry right away. I thought I would feel relief. Maybe I did, buried under the ache. But eventually I sat down on the cold tile, pulled my knees to my chest, and let the tears come. Not because I regretted it, not because I wanted him back under a contract, but because I missed him, because I didn't know if he would ever come back, not as a demon, not as anything, and because in some twisted way, he'd been the first one who didn't demand I become smaller to be loved. The contract was over, the vengeance was done, and all I had left now was me, just me. And maybe, for the first time, that was enough. Morning came slowly, like the sky wasn't sure if it wanted to commit. Golden light spilled through my kitchen window, catching on the dust motes dancing in the air. The apartment was still. Peaceful. Too peaceful. He was gone. He had to be. I had burned the contract. Ended the deal. That was the rule. I moved through the apartment like someone walking through a dream, expecting silence at every turn. My chest ached with something I didn't want to name, until I reached the kitchen, and there he was, standing by the counter, barefoot, pouring coffee like it was just another morning, like nothing had changed, like he belonged. I froze. "You're still here." Noir turned to me slowly, his expression unreadable, but softer than I'd ever seen it. "I am." My voice was barely above a whisper. "You're not supposed to be." "I know." The silence pressed between us like a third presence. "I ended the contract," I said. "You should be gone," he finished. "Yes. I should, but you're not." "No." I stared at him, breath caught in my throat. "So, you're not a demon anymore?" He tilted his head slightly, as if amused. "I am still a demon. I am still what I was made to be." "Then why are you here?" He stepped closer, slow and deliberate, stopping just short of touching me. "Because I chose to stay." My hands clenched at my sides. "That's not how it works." It never was about how it worked. It was about what mattered. I looked up at him. "So what? I matter now?" A pause. "You became my desire," he said quietly. "And I don't know how to let go of that." The words cracked something wide open inside me. For so long, I had been used, bargained with, dismissed. My worth measured in favors, in guilt, in obligation, but not now. Not here. I stepped forward until we were only inches apart. The air between us was charged, but not heavy. Just full, with everything we hadn't said. His hand reached out, hesitant at first, then confident. Our fingers brushed as we both reached for the same coffee cup. We both stopped. Neither pulled away. Our hands stayed there, touching lightly over ceramic, warmed by the morning. And then, finally, he leaned in. The kiss wasn't dramatic. It wasn't fireworks or a movie climax. It was quiet, gentle. A breath shared between people who had lost too much to rush anything real. It was a question and an answer. It was permission. When he pulled back, he didn't ask if I was okay. He already knew. I smiled, just a little. "No more contracts." "No more," he agreed. "Just choice." "Yes." His voice was barely audible. "And I choose you." My new office was small, sunlit, and smelled faintly of fresh paint and coffee grounds. There was nothing fancy, just a desk I built myself, a plant that hadn't died yet, and a corkboard covered in handwritten notes from people I had helped. Real people. Women, mostly. Burned by office politics. Trapped under someone else's thumb. Wounded, but fighting. Now, I helped them build ladders out of the rubble. It wasn't a fortune, but it was mine. A soft jazz track played from the Bluetooth speaker as I sipped coffee and went through emails. A couple of new clients. One girl had finally walked out of her toxic firm. Another had negotiated her first raise. Small victories, but the kind that mattered. My phone buzzed. "Mom." I stared at the screen for a long second, then answered. "Celeste," she began immediately, her tone already weaving the web. "I hate to ask, but your brother—" "No," I said gently. A pause. I didn't even finish. "You don't have to," I said, voice calm. "Steady. You're asking for money I don't owe you. And I'm not giving it." She bristled. "After all I've done." I know, I interrupted. And I'm grateful for the good parts. But I'm not your safety net anymore. A longer pause. Then she said, cool and sharp. So this is who you are now? I smiled. No, this is who I've always been. Then I ended the call. No panic. No guilt. Just breath. I leaned back in my chair and exhaled, letting the sunlight hit my face. Freedom wasn't loud. It was quiet. Like this. When I got home that evening, the apartment smelled like cinnamon and old books. Noir sat cross-legged on the floor by the window, a paperback in his lap and a notepad beside him filled with strange sketches and words written in languages I didn't recognize. You annotated the dictionary again? I teased, hanging up my coat. It's deeply flawed, he replied, flipping a page. The word yearn is described as irrational. That's incorrect. I smiled and walked to the kitchen, pouring 2 mugs of tea. He'd taken to reading obsessively. Philosophy, fiction, poetry, recipe blogs. He said understanding desire required studying its shape in human minds. I thought he just liked the wanting. I handed him a mug and sat beside him on the floor. For a moment we just sat in silence, the city humming beyond the windows, both of us lit in soft orange from the setting sun. I was thinking, I said. He looked up, alert but relaxed. Dangerous habit. I nudged his leg with my foot. Shut up. His eyes sparkled, not glowing, just bright, real. I was thinking, I repeated, that maybe this is what I wanted all along. A job? No. A life I didn't have to survive. He was quiet for a moment. Then, and what am I in this life? I looked at him carefully, then smiled. You're not a condition, not a consequence. You're not here because I summoned you, or because I needed revenge, or even because I was broken. He didn't blink. You're here because I chose you, I said. Now my life is my contract, and you? I reached over, fingers brushing his. You're not part of the fine print. You're my choice. Something flickered in his expression, something almost unfamiliar. A smile. Not sly, not haunting, just human. He set the book down and laced our fingers together. You know, he murmured, this kind of peace is suspiciously inefficient. I grinned. You'll survive. I might. And in that quiet room, with the world moving on outside and the worst behind us, I realized I didn't need magic or vengeance or perfect endings. Just this. Just him. Just a life that finally belonged to me.